Hey, welcome to The Explainer. So you hear about the United Nations all the time, right? In the news, during global crises. But what is it really? What does it actually do? And how in the world does this huge global organization even work? All right, let's get into it. So this quote right here, this is basically the heart of the UN's mission, written way back in 1945. But you gotta understand, this wasn't just some nice, optimistic idea. It was born out of total desperation. To really get why it was created, you have to picture the world back then, a world that was literally tearing itself apart.
Right, so the UN wasn't just a nice-to-have idea. It was an absolute necessity. It was forged in the fire of World War II with one single powerful idea driving it. Never again.
And get this, the war wasn't even officially over yet, but leaders were already planning for the peace. I mean, look at how fast this all moved. From a blueprint in '44 to a signed charter less than a year later. That just shows you how incredibly urgent this was for everyone involved.
So 50 countries were there in San Francisco to sign this historic charter. But wait, you see the number 51, right? What's up with that? Well, Poland couldn't make it to the conference, but they signed on a little later, so they're counted as one of the original founding members.
Okay, so they signed the charter. What did these 51 nations actually promise to do? Well, it was about way more than just stopping another huge war. They came up with 4 huge goals that are, believe it or not, still the UN's guiding mission today. Just take a look at how incredibly broad this mission is. Yeah, number 1 is keep the peace, which you'd expect. But look at the others. They're about actively making the world a better place, fighting poverty, disease, illiteracy, and promoting human rights. So, see, the UN wasn't created to just be a referee blowing the whistle. It was designed to be a partner, an active player in helping the world move forward. Okay, a mission that massive? Well, you're going to need a pretty serious structure to actually pull it off, right? So how does the UN actually work? How is it put together? It all comes down to 6 main parts, or what the UN Charter calls its principal organs. Think of these as the main pillars that hold the whole thing up. 6. That's the magic number to remember. And each one of these 6 bodies has a really specific job to do, covering everything from global debates to life and death decisions about war and peace. All right, this table lays it all out for us. Think of the General Assembly as kind of like a world parliament. Every country gets a seat. Then you've got the super powerful Security Council. They're the ones dealing with peace and security. The Economic and Social Council, well, that's all about tackling things like poverty and global health. The International Court of Justice is pretty self-explanatory. It's the UN's top court. The Secretariat is like the administrative backbone that keeps everything running day to day. And the Treatyship Council, well, its job is pretty much finished, but it's still technically one of the 6. Now, the Security Council is probably the most powerful part of the UN, and it's because of this really unique setup. You've got 10 members that are elected for 2-year terms, but then you have the P5, the 5 permanent members. And here's the kicker, their veto power. A single no from any one of those 5 countries can completely stop a resolution, dead in its tracks. This whole setup was basically a snapshot of the world's power balance in 1945, and it's a huge reason why the Council often finds itself gridlocked on big issues today. So remember we started with 51 members? Well, today that number is 193. It's become a truly global club. So how does a country get in? Well, first off, a country has to meet this basic requirement. It's not enough to just be a country. You have to be peace-loving, and you have to agree to all the rules in the UN Charter. Once you've got that covered, there's a pretty clear process to follow. And you can really see the checks and balances at play here. An applicant has to get a yes from the Security Council, where, remember, any of the P5 can just say no, and then they need a 2/3 majority vote from the entire General Assembly. It's definitely not easy to get in, and that's by design. So let's talk about today. What does the UN actually do now? Most of us think of the blue helmets, the peacekeepers, right? But that is just a tiny piece of a much, much bigger picture. The UN's work touches pretty much every corner of the planet, often in ways you would never guess. And this is where you see just how huge the UN's job is. I mean, it's not all high-level politics and meetings in New York. We're talking about UN agencies on the ground, coordinating disaster relief, protecting refugees, even clearing landmines. They're pushing for climate action, they're fighting for human rights. Basically, if there's a massive global challenge out there, you can bet the UN system is involved, trying to build that better, safer world that the founders dreamed of back in 1945. So what's the takeaway? The UN is complicated. It gets criticized. a lot, but it's also this monumental experiment in getting the whole world to work together. It was created from the rubble of a world war, and now it has to face the incredibly complex challenges of our world today. Which kind of leaves us with one big question to think about. In a world that feels more and more divided, is that original mission, to bring nations together, more critical now than it has ever been?